Oh,
Oh, I just
seem to be in a hang here.
oh yeah, I just started the broadcast. Hi everyone, sorry about the delay. You might have seen in the Facebook group. We well, YouTube is in maintenance mode, so I went to load it up, and it wouldn't load up, and it just gave me this message to say to check back in 15 minutes. So now it's working, so it's all good. How are you today, Graham?
I'm doing fine, Tandy, but you know, you were cutting out just on that intro there a little bit, so um, uh,
Oh,
we'll just have to kind of pay attention and see if we're dropping on and off, you know.
yeah, okay. Huh, that's
Yeah,
strange. Yeah, I wonder if it's because of the maintenance stuff.
possibly, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like now, my screen has gone black, even though you're showing in the box down below, and
huh.
so when I access that, I don't see you.
Yeah. Oh, that's
See,
strange.
yeah,
Yeah, I have a feeling it could be to do with what they're doing.
that seems a little.
Yeah. Okay, well let's just do make the best of best of it.
Yeah,
Um,
I wrote, I wrote a little note there about today's chapter, which is the brain as a broadcaster and receiver, right? So it's going to be an interesting chapter. It is.
yeah, it is, and it's ironic that we're having trouble broadcasting.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, universe.
Yeah, right. And I can tell something's up because normally I can enable the Q&A and I can't today, even though I've actually enabled it, saying you can't. So we have people watching. So if you are leaving comments on the Q&A, unfortunately we can't see them. So we'll just be able to see them in the event. You can do that on the Google parts. But let's get to the book. That's why we're here. So we're reading about, as Glenn just said, the brain as a broadcasting and receiving station. I love this chapter personally because I actually had a big breakthrough with this topic a few years ago before reading this book, which I'll probably share after we finish reading. I can't remember who read yesterday. Did you read, Glenn, or did?
You read, and I'm up for. Let's see. See,
Cool.
yeah, you did read. You read yesterday,
Yeah, yeah. I
and
can't
I'm
remember.
up for reading today. But and let's see. I'm trying. I'm going to do the screen share now, and let's see if it comes up because I don't. My screen is black right now.
Oh, I see. It's strange because I can see you clearly.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
you in the small box down below. I can't see you on my main screen.
Okay. Is it letting you screen share or?
Okay, I'm going to hit share now for the book.
Yeah.
Does that show for you?
Yeah. It's perfect. It's
Oh,
fine.
okay,
Cool.
good.
Okay.
Okay,
Myself.
then we'll start reading, huh?
Cool. Let's do it.
Okay. Chapter 13: The Brain, a Broadcasting and Receiving Station for Thought. The 12th Step Towards Riches. More than 20 years ago, the author, working in conjunction with the late Dr. Alexander Graham Bell and Dr. Elmer R. Gates, observed that every human brain is both a broadcasting and a receiving station for the vibration of thought. Through the medium of the ether, in a fashion similar to that employed by the radio broadcasting principle, every human brain is capable of picking up vibrations of thought which are being released by other brains. In connection with the statement in the preceding paragraph, compare and consider the description of the creative imagination as outlined in the chapter on imagination. The creative imagination is the receiving set of the brain, which receives thoughts released by the brains of others. It is the agency of communication between one's conscious or reasoning mind and the four sources from which one may receive thought stimuli. When stimulated or stepped up to a high rate of vibration, the mind becomes more receptive to the vibration of thought, which reaches it through the ether from outside sources. The stepping up process takes place through the positive emotions or the negative emotions. Through the emotions, the vibrations of thought may be increased. Vibrations of an exceedingly high rate are the only vibrations picked up and carried by the ether from one brain to another. Thought is energy traveling at an exceedingly high rate of vibration. Thought, which has been modified or stepped up by any of the major emotions, vibrates at a much higher rate than ordinary thought. And it is this type of thought which passes from one brain to another through the broadcasting machinery of the human brain. The emotion of sex stands at the head of the list of human emotions as far as intensity and driving force are concerned. The brain, which has been stimulated by the emotion of sex, vibrates at a much more rapid rate than it does when the emotion is quiescent or absent. Through the instructions described in the chapter on autosuggestion, you are definitely informed of the method by which desire may be transmuted into its monetary equivalent. Operation of your mental broadcasting station is comparatively simple procedure. You have but three principles to bear in mind and to apply when you wish to use your broadcasting station: the subconscious mind, creative imagination, and autosuggestion. The stimuli through which you put these three principles into action have been described. The procedure begins with desire. The greatest forces are intangible. The Depression brought the world to the very borderline of understanding of the forces which are intangible and unseen. Through the ages which have passed, man has depended too much upon his physical senses and has limited his knowledge to physical things which he could see, touch, weigh, and measure. We are now entering the most marvelous of all ages, an age which will teach us something of the intangible forces of the world about us. Perhaps we shall learn as we pass through this age that the other self is more powerful than the physical self we see when we look into a mirror. Sometimes men speak lightly of the intangibles, things which they cannot perceive through any of their five senses, and when we hear them, it should remind us that all of us are controlled by forces which are unseen and intangible. The whole of mankind has not the power to cope with nor to control the intangible force wrapped up in the rolling waves of the oceans. Man has not the capacity to understand the intangible force of gravity which keeps this little earth suspended in midair and keeps man from falling from it, much less the power to control that force. Man is entirely subservient to the intangible force which comes with a thunderstorm, and he is just as helpless in the presence of the intangible force of electricity. Nay, he does not even know what electricity is, where it comes from, or what its purpose. What is its purpose? Nor is this by any means the end of man's ignorance in connection with things unseen and intangible. He does not understand the intangible force and intelligence wrapped up in the soil of the earth, the force which provides him with every morsel of food he eats, every article of clothing he wears, every dollar he carries in his pockets. The dramatic story of the brain. Last but not least, man, with all of his boasted culture and education, understands little or nothing of the intangible force, the greatest of all the intangibles, of thought. He knows but little concerning the physical brain and its vast network of intricate machinery through which the power of thought is translated into its material equivalent. But he is now entering an age which shall yield enlightenment on the subject. Already men of science have begun to turn their attention to the study of this stupendous thing called a brain, and while they are still in the kindergarten stage of their studies, they have covered enough knowledge to know that the central switchboard of the human brain, the number of lines which connect the brain cells one with another, equal to figure 1 followed by 15 million ciphers. The figure is so stupendous, said Dr. C. Judson Herrick of the University of Chicago, that astronomical figures dealing with hundreds of millions of light years become insignificant by comparison. It has been determined that there are from 10 billion to 14 billion nerve cells in the human cerebral cortex, and we know that these are arranged in definite patterns. These arrangements are not haphazard. They are orderly. Recently developed methods of electrophysiology draw off action currents from very precisely located cells or fibers with microelectrodes, amplify them with radio tubes, and record potential differences to a millionth of a volt. It is unconceivable that such a network of intricate machinery should be in existence for the sole purpose of carrying on the physical functions incidental to growth and maintenance of the physical body. It is not likely that the same system which gives billions of brain cells the media for communication one with another provides also the means of communication with other intangible forces. After this book had been written, just before the manuscript went to the publisher, there appeared in the New York Times an editorial showing that at least one great university and one intelligent investigator in the field of mental phenomena are carrying on an organized research through which conclusions have been reached that parallel many of those described in this and the following chapter. The editorial briefly analyzed the work carried on by Dr. Rhine and his associates at Duke University, viz. What is telepathy? A month ago, we cited on this page some of the remarkable results achieved by Professor Rhine and his associates in Duke University from more than 100,000 tests to determine the existence of telepathy and clairvoyance. These results were summarized in the first two articles in Harper's Magazine. In the second, which has now appeared, the author E.H. Wright attempts to summarize what has been learned, or what seems reasonable to infer, regarding the exact nature of these extrasensory modes of perception. The actual existence of telepathy and clairvoyance now seems to some scientists enormously probable as a result of Rhine's experiments. Various participants were asked to name as many cards in a special pack as they could without looking at them and without other sensory access to them. About a score of men and women were discovered who could regularly name so many of the cards correctly that there was not one chance in many a million of their having done their feats by luck or accident. But how did they do them? These powers, assuming that they exist, do not seem to be sensory. There is no known organ for them. The experiments work just as well at distances of several hundred miles as they did in the same room. These facts also dispose, in Mr. Wright's opinion, of the attempt to explain telepathy or clairvoyance through any physical theory of radiation. All known forms of radiant energy decline inversely as the square of the distance traversed. Telepathy and clairvoyance do not, but they do vary through physical causes as our other mental powers do. Contrary to widespread opinion, they do not improve when the participant is asleep or half asleep, but on the contrary, when he is most wide awake and alert. Rhine discovered that a narcotic will invariably lower participant's score, while a stimulant will always send it higher. The most reliable performer apparently cannot make a good score unless he tries to do his best. One conclusion that Wright draws with some confidence is that telepathy and clairvoyance are really one and the same gift. That is, the faculty that sees the card face down on a table seems to be exactly the same one that reads a thought residing only in another's mind. There are several grounds for believing this. So far, for example, the two gifts that have been found in every person who enjoys either of them. In every one so far, the two have been of equal vigor, almost exactly. Screens, walls, distances have no effect at all on either. Wright advances from this conclusion to express what he puts forward as no more than the mere hunch that other extrasensory experiences, prophetic dreams, premonitions of disaster, and the like may also prove to be part of the same faculty. The reader is not asked to accept any of these conclusions unless he finds it necessary, but the evidence that Rhine has piled up must remain impressive. In view of Dr. Rhine's announcement in connection with the conditions under which the mind responds to what he terms extrasensory modes of perception, I now feel privileged to add to his testimony by stating that my associates and I have discovered what we believe to be the ideal conditions under which the mind can be stimulated so that the sixth sense prescribed in the next chapter can be made to function in a practical way. The conditions to which I refer consist of a close working alliance between myself and two members of my staff. Through experimentation and practice, we have discovered how to stimulate our minds by applying the principle used in connection with the invisible counselors described in the next chapter, so that we can, by a process of blending our three minds into one, find the solution to a great variety of personal problems which are submitted by my clients. The procedure is very simple. We sit down at a conference table, clearly state the nature of the problem we have under consideration, then begin discussing it. Each contributes whatever thoughts that may occur. The strange thing about this method of mind stimulation is that it places each participant in communication with an unknown source of knowledge, definitely outside his own experience. If you understand the principle described in the chapter on the mastermind, you, of course, recognize the round table procedure here described as being a practical application of the mastermind. This method of mind stimulation through harmonious discussion of definite subjects between three people illustrates the simplest and most practical use of the mastermind. By adopting and following a similar plan, any student of this philosophy may come into possession of the famous Carnegie formula briefly described in the introduction. If it means nothing to you at this time, mark this page and read it again after you have finished the last chapter. The Depression was a blessing in disguise. It reduced the whole world to a new starting point that gives everyone a new opportunity.
Cool, thank you, Glenn. I think that's the whole chapter, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And the next one is going to be exciting tomorrow on Friday, right, Sandy?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
It used to be edited out of the book when for many years.
Yeah.
And it's there's still a lot of copies of the book where there isn't a chapter 14, but it's fascinating because it's easy, I think, to hear these words and to think, oh yeah, he's just talking about crazy stuff, but actually this is based on 25 years of research and interviewing 500 plus. I think actually he ended up interviewing way more than that because I've heard him speak about over 1,000 interviews and following very closely industrialists like Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Andrew Carnegie. You know, this is not just his kind of theories. This is based on what he saw, and so you know, it's just so interesting. He's basically saying, "Oh, go on." Mm.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, what you're saying is it is very interesting that you know, the study that he did on observing 500 people and people that are very successful and wealthy, right?
Yeah.
Basically led him to this brain work, right? To understanding that's a more scientific level, actually, because if you look at even the book that we're reading about quantum physicists, that why they do not fail. When you get into that, you begin to understand the brain is amazingly powerful, and it's actually the mind, right? The brain is an elegant thing for our mind to use, right? You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a tool, and when you understand that we're actually connected to everything, all of us.
Yes.
Then you understand. I mean, I was just trying to think, why did Napoleon feel strongly about this to put it into the book? You know, what's he telling people by the fact that he's talking about this and putting it in? And to me, it seems like he's saying, you have to realize that you have these abilities, you know, that you have the ability to pick up on things from infinite intelligence, to be able to receive communication from all kinds of places, from other people's brains, from God, the universe, infinite intelligence, and that when you don't realize that, you kind of reduce the amount of ideas you could get because you kind of you know, you don't use it as a muscle. Whereas when you realize that, you can actually start to kind of call on it, you know, and it's not like I don't think he's saying become dependent on it. You know, that's not the point. It's just like an extra thing. It's like if you could speak Italian and you didn't know, and then you never spoke Italian, you never like spoke to any Italian people because you didn't think you could, you know, then it would be a waste of what could have been. So that's how I see it. You know, he's like, you guys can speak Italian, and you never speak it. You only ever speak English and Chinese, and you can do this too.
And then also the mention that he made about vibration, stepping up the vibration with emotion, right? Being that's used to step that vibration up, and then when you step that vibration up to that high level, that's when you're starting to lock in with somebody else's brain. You know, really, that's how. That's the way I see it there. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a flip side to it as well, because if you think about it, you know, if your brain is a broadcasting station, so it puts out thoughts and it hears thoughts. The flip side can be that sometimes you hear thoughts which don't make you feel good, and you think that it's you, and it's actually just you hearing other people's broadcasts.
Exactly.
And,
where did that come from, right? You know, who did that come from? Yeah.
exactly.
Who did that come from? Who did that come from? Not
yeah.
from me. You know, yeah.
Yeah, and
And
it's funny.
send it back to them too, you know, right?
Yeah, I think we have a delay because we keep talking over each other. um, yeah, and I actually did a workshop a few years ago, a personal development technique, and they talked a lot about this. It was almost like the foundational philosophy of their whole technique. And I actually thought that they invented it. I didn't realize that this has been around, this idea, for, well over a century now. But they had a tool where they would say, where did this come from? Like you just said, who does this belong to? And I started to do that a lot after getting very ill about 5 years ago. And I suddenly experienced a massive shift in my happiness levels, because I realized I was living in central London in a very big capital city, and it was also my work. I was always focusing on negative stuff, and I was generally not very happy. And so when I stopped focusing on all of the negative stuff and I began asking, who does this belong to? I could feel like these clouds of weight just lifting off my shoulders and floating away. Becoming aware of this really changed my life, because I stopped assuming that whenever I felt weird or bad that it was something going on with me, and I began to ask myself, okay, where is this coming from? Is this me, or is this just someone else? So that's something that it's like Napoleon doesn't really go into the flip side, but when you know that, it can help sometimes when you do have any weird moments.
Yeah.
And also just one other thing that can help, which is actually from Why Quantum Physicists Do Not Fail. I think we're going to be talking about that book a lot now. I was reading it again today. I'm reading it a second time now. But one thing I really love about that book, and it's by Greg Kuhn. If any of you guys want to go and read it, you can get it on Kindle or Amazon.
Hey, by the way, Sandy, we should both contact him too and let him know, that we're applying principles, right?
Yeah.
He asked us to do that in the book.
Yeah, exactly. That's so funny you should say that, because I was thinking about asking if I could interview him, but then I was wondering.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think I will. I think you should contact him as well, because he wants people to tell him.
Feedback. Yeah.
And I'm doing his idea where he said, if you take the 6 tools that he shares and use one every week for a whole year,
yes,
you'll see a massive difference. Yeah. So I've put them in my calendar, and I'm studying one per week now. I just know I'm going to do this because the book resonated with me so much that I just really, really think it's.
I love that you're action-oriented, Sandy, too. I love that. I think that's remarkable.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I didn't always used to be, but when you see something that just makes so much sense, and that if you don't do it, it's almost like you're just content to stay where you are. And one of the things that he shared, which I applied this morning, and it comes back also to emotions, which we talked about in the chapter just before this chapter, was in Why Quantum Physicists Do Not Fail. He talks a lot about when you realize you're having a weird feeling, or you feel bad about something, instead of getting swept up in it, you can actually notice it and then be grateful for it, because it's like when you're ill and you get a fever and your body's actually trying to get rid of the illness, or you have some kind of you're sick because you ate something you shouldn't eat, and so your body's actually evacuating the poisonous stuff. Yes. Well, what I realized from reading the book was that when we have a fear or some kind of bad feeling, we don't feel good about something, it's like your being telling you, it's like you being sick. There's something inside you need to get out. And I had this huge realization. I was like, oh wow, because I woke up feeling really bad about something, and it was really strange. I just really strong feeling, and I couldn't get rid of it. And so I read back. I went back to the book, and I was reading and reading, and I started to work through it.
It's a
And
message. It's a message to you.
exactly. And when you realize that, and then later on, I noticed he said, you actually become grateful for those feelings because you realize they're like a symptom of something that you can get rid of.
Right.
And I've never really seen it as clearly as that. And so, and actually, the energy did shift from just telling, disattaching myself from it, and telling myself, okay, I have this bad feeling about this right now, but I know that as I notice this more and more, and I tell myself a new story about it, it will
Right.
improve, and
Right
yeah,
on.
and it does start to change. And he says it's like building a brick. So it's all kind of coming from the same philosophy of Think and Grow Rich, that your
Yes.
thoughts create your reality. So when you realize that even the bad thoughts, they're not bad. They're just, that they're like an indication of something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm so grateful to you, Glenn, for recommending it. And I'm also grateful that you said that you kind of, because there was one thing you said that made me actually get it. Because I was kind of, I wasn't really that, I don't know what happened. Like, it
The
was funny.
title.
The
The
title
title
didn't really
might be
grab me,
off
to be
putting.
honest.
Yeah.
And it's the same with this book. This book's title put me off for ages. I didn't like the word rich for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
So
um,
that was a message to you too, Sandy.
totally. Because,
You probably thought that you weren't deserving of being rich, but you are. You are deserving of being rich, and you will be. I can see that. You
oh,
know.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
I'm
it was,
not saying that to flatter you. I'm saying that because of my experience of you.
oh, yeah, no, I can sense that. Yeah. And I was grateful because when you said on this hangout, uh, you should get the book, Sandy. Tell me in a message when you've got it. It was that one sentence. I felt I didn't want to let you down and not tell you because I said, yeah, okay, I will. And so then I was thinking about it over the weekend. I was like, I'm gonna get that book. And I'm so glad I did because it's one of the best books I've read in ages, and I read a lot of good books. So yeah, it's so just guys watching this, Why Quantum Physicists Do Not Fail, by Greg Kuhn. It's a brilliant book, and
Yeah.
it's so relevant to Think and Grow Rich. It will just help you understand it on a deeper level, I think. So
So it's a
yeah,
brick you can add to the cornerstone of Think and Grow Rich.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we're building something, out of that.
Yeah, brick by
You know,
brick.
I'd like to message with you sometime about certain things too, at some point.
Okay, yeah, do yeah.
I mean, just visit offline, so to speak. Now,
Okay,
I'll send you my information too.
okay, cool. Oh. Well, really grateful for this hangout and for everyone who watches and for you coming on, Glenn. And let's go out and broadcast
And receive.
inspiring and receive great, good stuff. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.
Have a great day. Have a good one, Glenn. Oh,
Okay.
no, not a good one. A great one.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.